In Brazil, President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva visits the state of Maranhao to monitor the flooding situation after heavy rains. In France, an avalanche near Mont Blanc in the country's southeastern region killed 4 people, injuring several others. And Israeli occupation forces continue to siege the Al-Aqsa mosque courtyard, escorting the entry of Jewish settlers amidst warnings from Muslim countries. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Brazilian President Luis Inácio da Silva arrived in the state of Maranhao to monitor the flooding situation in the state affected by heavy rains. The Brazilian head of state arrived on Sunday morning in the northeastern state of the country, where at least 64 cities are in an emergency situation and one has been declared a public calamity. As announced by President Lula da Silva, the reason for his visit is to monitor the flooding situation in the state and to visit the areas affected by the rains of the last few days. The president is accompanied by the governor of the state of Maranhao, Carlos Brandão, on his first visit to the region after being elected for his third presidential term. Meanwhile, the Regional Fire Department of Maranhao reported that some 35,800 families were affected by the floods and landslides in the state in the northeast of the country. On the other hand, the federal government allocated some $760,000 in March for family food baskets and popular restaurants that serve the shelters for the victims in more than 20 municipalities. According to the National Meteorological Institute, the rains will continue throughout the weekend in most of the region. In Ecuador, the number of deaths caused by the landslide that occurred 2 weeks ago in the town of Al-Aqsa, province of Chimborazo, has risen to 33. According to the Risk Management Secretariat, 56 people are still missing and more than 1,000 have been affected by the destruction of 163 houses and the complete destruction of 55 others. The fire departments and rescuers from other cities are supporting the efforts to recover the bodies of those who could not escape the landslide. In this regard, the Ecuadorian National Executive announced that it will allocate $200 million to help those affected by the current rainy season, the strongest in the last 15 years. A Delaware mall shooting leaves 3 people shot and 5 others injured on late Saturday night. The incident took place at the Christiana Mall in Newark, the largest shopping mall in the state of Delaware, attracting many due to the state's lack of sales tax. Many shoppers were told to hide in stores immediately after the shooting occurred. Officers who first responded to the incident told residents to run and hide while they sought out the shooter and swept the building. Investigators do not believe the shooting was a random act and say an altercation began at the mall's food court between multiple suspects and at least one of them, the victims. Police have yet to confirm how many suspects they are searching for, though they say there is no threat to the public at this time. On Sunday, the Venezuelan Public Prosecutor's Office reported that 67 arrests and 142 search warrants were requested as part of the anti-corruption operation carried out by the government. According to the Attorney General Tarek William Saab, through Twitter, the judicial action seeks to punish the mafias of the 31 PDVSA crypto and the Venezuelan Corporation of Guyana schemes, among others. Saab detailed that a total of 127 people are being investigated, 10 are in the preliminary phase, 16 are in trial, and 75 have been sentenced. In addition to these, 34 were arrested on Wednesday linked to the PDVSA crypto scheme, for a total of 262 people processed. Saab also highlighted the arduous fight against corruption in general, including that within the public ministry itself, where 361 officials were indicted, of which 293 were prosecuted. In Cuba, search and rescue teams have found the lifeless body of the 4th worker who was missing after a chimney column broke off at the Antonio Guterres thermoelectric power plant in Matanzas on Saturday. According to a national television report, the body belongs to 57-year-old Lázaro Frank Montero, although it is still necessary to wait for the official forensic medicine report. This concludes the search for the 4 workers who were at the scene at the time of the incident, with the preliminary results of 2 injured and 2 dead. The collapse of a 7-meter-high wall occurred when the 4 employees were working on the lower part of the chimney. The victims belong to a Ministry of Construction's company specialized in repair and maintenance in high altitude and chimneys. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel sent his condolences on Twitter to families, friends, and co-workers of Lázaro Frank Montero, and he expressed his deep regret at receiving the hard news of the workers' passing and sent a strong embrace to the people of Matanza. This Sunday, Cuba commemorates the 65th anniversary of the Revolutionary General Strike, an action aimed at paralyzing the Caribbean nation to overthrow the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista. Summoned by the 26th of July movement, hundreds of people, mostly young and humble workers, mobilized in different cities of the country, dressed in olive green uniform and the movement's red and black armband to lead the strike. More than 100 activists lost their lives between the 9th and 10th of April 1958 as a result of the brutal repression of Batista's dictatorship. Even though the action did not achieve the expected results, its example left valuable experiences to the Cuban revolutionary movement. 8 months later, the Cuban Revolution achieved its final victory, and a new stage in the history of the country began. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In France, 4 people were killed and some more injured in an avalanche on Sunday near Mont Blanc in the southeastern region of the country. Minister of Interior Gerald Darmanin stated that emergency responders are still working, and the toll is provisional, and wrote on Twitter, "We are thinking of the victims and their loved ones." 9 people apart from the 4 killed were involved in the avalanche, Haute-Savoie Department Prefecture reported. The people involved, whose identities have not been determined yet, were hiking near the glacier, Darman said, as part of one of several groups. No avalanche warning had been issued for the region by weather authorities. Meanwhile, President Emmanuel Macron wrote on Twitter that we are thinking of the victims as well as of their families. Our emergency services have been mobilized to find those still trapped in the snow. Emergency responders deployed a helicopter as well as specialist mountain rescue dogs to the scene and are still combing the area, while the prefecture warned that a further avalanche cannot be ruled out. In the south of France, the collapse of a residential building in Marseille has caused at least 5 serious injured, and it is estimated that in the coming hours it may increase the number of victims. The affected building is located at number 17 Tivoli Street, and its collapse also affected the surrounding buildings. According to authorities, the main hypothesis is that the collapse was caused by an explosion, whose causes are still unknown. According to the first official report, the collapse has affected 33 residents of Marseille, 6 of whom had to be taken to the hospital and 5 are in a relatively serious state. It was known that rescue works at the site are being complicated by a fire in the debris. And 8 people do not respond to calls following the collapse of a building in Marseille, according to Dominique Lawrence, the city's prosecutor.
We have indeed managed to assess that there are 8 people unaccounted for at 17 Tivoli Street, and for one of them, who is therefore located in a garden level which, in fact, makes the junction between 15 and 17. The building of 17 Tivoli Street is a building with 4 floors. So in this building live 8 people, and it is these 8 people of whom we have no news at the moment. We also have a recent information of a 9th person who would be sought at 19 Tivoli Street. For the moment, this information is not confirmed.
On Sunday, at least 2 people were killed and more than a dozen were wounded in Donetsk Republic after Ukrainian shelling. Ukrainian troops shelled the town of Yasynovtaya in the Donetsk People's Republic with an airstrike, Ukrainian war crimes authorities reported. causing at least 2 deaths and 16 wounded. For his part, a spokesman for the Russian Ministry of Defense said Russian armed forces destroyed 2 Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups in the Kupiansk region and foiled 3 attempts to rotate Ukrainian troops. Russia continues a special military operation in Ukraine due to allegations made by Donetsk and Lugansk of genocide by Kiev on those territories, which were recognized as sovereign states and incorporated into Russian territory following referendums. Donetsk and Lugansk broke away from Ukraine in May 2014 after failing to recognize the authorities post-2014 Kiev coup d'etat. Chinese armed forces continue for a second consecutive day a joint patrol over Taiwan Strait. On Sunday, the Chinese military continues combat readiness patrols and military exercises around the island of Taiwan. The maritime maneuvers involve destroyers, frigates, speedboats, and coastal assault forces. At the same time, dozens of Air Force aircraft flew into the target airspace in combat formations. According to a command spokesman, these operations serve as a strong warning against separatist forces seeking Taiwan independence and foreign interfering forces.
We organize this combat drill totally in accordance with the real combat conditions and focus on improving the capability of rapid response firepower and high-precision strikes in bid to comprehensively test the new methods and tactics of using weapons and equipment for actual combat.
This Sunday in Japan, local elections to elect governors, regional assemblies, and mayors' offices were held all over the country. In general terms, these elections will elect 9 prefecture governors, mayors of 6 major cities, and assembly seats in 41 prefectures and 17 cities. The governorship in question include those of the prefecture of Hokkaido, Kanagawa, and Osaka, as well as that of the mayor with the same name, as they are among those with the largest population. The second round of these elections is scheduled for April the 23rd and will select mayors and members of local assemblies in other Japanese municipalities, as well as 5 seats remaining vacant in the national parliament. TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461 and enjoy Latin American alternative broadcasts. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Israeli occupation forces continue the siege of the esplanade to the Al-Aqsa mosque to force the entry of Jewish settlers into the religious enclosure amidst warnings from Muslim countries. According to the Department of Islamic Endowments in Jerusalem, dozens of settlers entered the site and carried out provocative tours under the protection of Israeli uniformed personnel on the occasion of the Passover celebrations. The troops set up several barriers inside the walls of the old city and prevented the young Palestinians from entering the Al-Aqsa mosque. On the other hand, the Jerusalem government recalled the exclusive right of Muslims to the Al-Aqsa mosque and described the ongoing violations of the sanctity of the prayer site as a crime of occupation. The government recalled that such actions are in breach of the 1967 status quo, according to which Jews are only allowed to visit the site but not to pray. And the Palestinian Health Ministry said Israeli soldiers shot dead a Palestinian man in the north of the occupied West Bank on Saturday. The ministry said in a brief statement that 20-year-old Ahed Salim was hit in the chest and belly by live fire in Asun near Kalkiliyah, without giving further details. The shooting follows a surge in Middle East violence since Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa mosque on Wednesday after they say Palestinians barricaded themselves inside. Israel bombarded both Gaza and Lebanon in response to a rocket fire from Lebanon, and late Saturday, 3 rockets were fired at Israel from Syria. On Friday, an Italian tourist and 2 Israeli-British sisters were killed, the tourists in a Tel Aviv car ramming attack and the women in a West Bank shooting. Pope Francis called for an end to the armed conflicts affecting the world during his Easter Sunday Mass and the traditional blessing Urbi et Orbi. Gathered around St. Peter's Square at the Vatican in front of thousands of faithful, the Supreme Pontiff expressed his deep concern over the conflicts in which many countries around the world are currently involved. During his speech, Pope Francis referred to the conflict in Ukraine and also to Haiti, where for several years there has been suffering from a serious social, political, and humanitarian crisis. The Pope also condemned the new wave of tensions between Israelis and Palestinians following the violent intervention of the Israeli occupiers' police in the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem, events that, he said, threaten the desired climate for trust and mutual respect necessary to resume dialogue. In this sense, he called on the international community to put an end to all these conflicts.
On this day, Lord, we entrust to you the city of Jerusalem, the first witness of your resurrection. May there be a resumption of dialogue in a climate of trust and reciprocal respect between Israeli and Palestinians, so that peace may reign in the holy city and in the entire region.
Israeli Defense Forces have attacked Syria after 6 rockets were fired from Lebanon into the eastern country's territory. The State of Israel held the Syrian military forces responsible of launching the 6 rockets against the Golan Heights, 3 of which fell and hit directly into Israeli territory. In response, the Israeli Defense Forces initiated an attack with drones and fires into Syrian territory. Israel assured that it will not allow again an attack that violates the sovereignty of its territory. Iraq accuses Turkey of bombarding an airport in the autonomous Kurdish region while the commander of the Kurdish-led and U.S. allied Syrian Democratic Forces was present. Airport authorities said the bombardment caused an explosion near the airport wall and led to a small fire which was quickly brought under control. A source at the Turkish Defense Ministry denied any involvement by the country's armed forces. The Pentagon in Washington confirmed that a convoy including U.S. military personnel had been struck by the blast, although there were no casualties. Turkey regards the Syrian Democratic Forces and its main component, the People's Protection Unit, as an offshoot of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which has a presence in Iraq's Kurdistan region and is listed as a terrorist organization by Ankara. Around 900 U.S. troops remain in Syria, most in the Kurdish-administered northeast, as part of a U.S.-led coalition battling remnants of ISIS. In Morocco, citizens took to the streets in different cities to protest against the soaring prices of foodstuffs at the call of a coalition of left-wing parties. In Casablanca, more than 60 people demonstrated at the Sragna Square in a popular district of the megalopolis. Abdelkader Amri, member of the executive board of the Democratic Confederation of Labor, said people denounced the policy of the government, which promised to be a government of the social state, but turned out to be one of social disparities. Groups of demonstrators also gathered in Rabat, Tangier, and Marrakesh. The protests come amid a surge in inflation that has put the government under fire from trade unions, the parliamentary opposition, and the local media.
It is a Syrian protest against the high cost of living, against policies that violate the rights of Moroccans, that violate the economic and social rights of Moroccans in particular, but also the political rights because there are also political prisoners in jail. There are a lot of problems concerning the high cost of living, the right to education, the right to health, and various other rights that are violated. So this is a sit-in to express our anger, our protest, but also to remind us that all the people and all the organizations that are there will continue to fight for a better Morocco.
In Uganda, some 65 kilometers north of the capital, Kampala, a bamboo farmer leads the way for projects to fight against the nation's deforestation. The lush green bamboo forest is the brainchild of former journalist turned farmer Andrew Dawola Kalema. The country has lost over 1 million hectares of tree cover, nearly a third of the country's total. With Uganda losing hundreds of hectares of forest cover due to population pressure and illegal logging, both public and individual efforts have become key to restoring degraded land. Kalema said bamboo, which is fast-growing and can adapt to different weather conditions, is key to mitigating the effects of climate change in the nation. Bamboo can absorb 30% more carbon dioxide and generate 30% more oxygen. We have come to the end of this news brief from you. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.